What plant surprised me? That's actually easy. I started my herbal studies living in Oregon. And Oregon has a lot of moisture generally. And while I liked learning about demulcents, you know, those mucilage-rich, slimy herbs that help with hydration, and they're great for dry, irritated membranes, like a dry, sore throat, or maybe constipation or heartburn, you know, or sunburn. But in Oregon, I didn't have any real dry issues. You know, I historically have had oily skin and oily hair, and so living in a moist environment, I didn't have any dryness issues. Until I moved to the south. I lived in Arizona for a bit, and I've lived in Southern California in the hills for many years now. And we have these things called the Santa Ana winds, and they come up every once in a while. And when they do, the humidity drops dramatically. And everybody who has any type of dryness issue notices. And people who don't have dryness issues also notice. I had never gotten a bleeding nose in my life. It had never happened until my first experience with Santa Ana's. And all of a sudden my nose started bleeding. And I was completely shocked by it. I didn't understand. But then the more I do teaching, where I'm talking and talking and talking, I realize, and I've started using over the last 10 years where I do a lot of teaching, I use marshmallow tea or other demulcents in tea all the time. And I notice that my throat doesn't get as dried out. I mean, when you're talking, vapor is leaving. So literally moisture is leaving my body as I'm speaking. And I often do classes where I'm speaking for anywhere from 2 hours to 8 hours. So I am losing a lot of moisture, and having those demulcents around and using them on a regular basis has been like a night and day experience. And then last year, the Santa Ana's hit, and I went and I was visiting a friend, and they were talking about how intense their dry sinuses were, and that they've actually had some bloody noses. And I said, oh yeah, you know, that happened to me a bunch of years ago. But they said, oh, well, is it happening to you now? And I said, no, it's not. And they said, well, what are you doing? How do I get this to go away? And I started thinking about it. And I think the main thing that I've done is not consciously to combat those Santa Ana dryness, but it's the drinking of demulcents on a daily basis to combat my dry throat. In the big picture, demulcents are helping all of your mucosal membranes that are dry be hydrated, even when they're not touching it. You know, if I have a dry throat and drinking the tea, that's having a direct physical effect. But demulcents also work by reflex, meaning when you feel that slimy mucilage on your throat, on that dry mucosal membrane, that triggers other mucosal membranes like your sinuses to also secrete thin, healthy mucus to coat and soothe. So I really feel like the drinking of demulcents on a regular basis has changed the integrity of my mucosal membranes so that they are not as reactive. They don't get as congested. They also don't get as dry. They're able to maintain their balance of a proper mucosal membrane. You don't want it too far on the spectrum of dryness. You don't want it too far on the spectrum of congested, heavy, and drippy. You want it right in the middle so that mucosal membrane can move and shift with the dance of life that we're all constantly doing.